what too many natural health proponents or promoters or practitioners are getting wrong. Now, I'm going to say two things before I launch into what I want to say about this. The first is, obviously, I know the only being in the universe that has a monopoly on total truth and all the knowledge is God. And so I am not going to pretend that I know all truth and that everything I say is 100% true and fact either. Okay, so none of us have the whole picture. So I'm not trying to bash specific people. I'm not trying to put them down. But there are things that are often said that I really feel are not going to a deep enough level. And often these are the ones who have the loudest voices and the ability to get the word out, to sell their products, etc. And it's a little sad to me. So anyway, hi Ashley, good morning. Okay, so let's see. That was my one caveat. Did I have a second caveat? No, I wrapped it all together. Okay, so let's dive right in. So what I have noticed is that everyone says they want to get to the root cause. Fabulous. Awesome. And we all have different limitations on truly finding the root cause, and it's funny because I feel like when you're like, oh, well, the root cause is your hormones. Well, okay, where do your hormones come from? Oh, well, then the liver's the root cause. Okay, well, what damages the liver? Oh, well, this is the root, like, you can really, only God knows the real root cause. And I'm not saying that as like, oh, God knows, like, that's what I mean. And I think ultimately, most, if not everything, really comes back to our thoughts and our beliefs and the physiological effect those have on our body, right? And our spirit. And so I really do believe all things are created spiritually before they're created physically. And there are many wonderful things that we can do to help ourselves physically while we are also working on the spiritual, okay? But anyway, and so, okay, let's just talk about a particular example. I'm not going to say who it was because, again, I'm not trying to attack anyone personally, but I just went to the Your Health Freedom Symposium in Salt Lake City, actually in West Jordan, which is part of Salt Lake City, on Saturday, and it was awesome. But one of the first speakers was talking about how we are all really stressed, and when we're stressed, we burn magnesium really fast, so we need to take magnesium glycinate. Okay, I agree that we're all stressed, and I agree that when we're stressed, we burn nutrients really fast. I do not agree that we should be taking minerals from inorganic sources. So I'm going to draw an analogy and come back to what I'm talking about here. So when we look at farming, which I bring it back to a lot, farming and gardening, we have what's now called like conventional or traditional farming, even though it really isn't. But it's what's become the mainstream. Therefore, we call it the tradition, even though really it has no ancestral roots. It's all been made up and honestly adulterated and anyway. But what most mainstream people would say if you're trying to grow a plant is that you put it in the soil, you water it, you give it sunlight, etc. And then you feed it your NPK, okay, so your nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and you figure out what ratio your plants need based on a soil test of what's depleted. And this whole paradigm of our soils are so depleted now that we have to add things back into them. All right. it's not entirely untrue, but it's not entirely true either. Because when we give plants these isolated minerals, and usually these NPK fertilizers, like they're coming out of chemical plants, like there's really nothing natural about them. Maybe they've added in some manure, maybe they've added in some ash or something, you know, but it's really a chemical product. And, you know, especially if we then talk about herbicides and pesticides, it is a chemical product. They are anti-life. And even these, even the synthetic fertilizers kill off living organisms in the soil. So what we end up with is dead soil and a whole bunch of minerals and vitamins that the plants aren't truly, like, I want to say evolutionary, but it's not. I don't mean that in like the pure like Charles Darwin form, in the sense of how plants were divinely designed and have adapted over millennia to survive and to uptake nutrients. They were not designed to take it up this way. There's other steps that are supposed to happen in between that take those inorganic nutrients. And again, I'm not talking about organic, inorganic as in terms of like inorganic is you use Roundup and organic is you don't. What I mean is inorganic, that it is not incorporated into life. It's a rock. It's let's just say, okay, it's rock. The life that is supposed to be in the soil, this huge web of microorganisms and invertebrates and tiny creatures and all these things, like they are all part of what is supposed to be taking those rock forms of things and turning it into something that the plant can use well in a healthy form the way it was designed. Now, when you put those inorganic things in the soil to say, okay, plant, you need more nitrogen, you know, okay, let's say you have a plant that's showing a nitrogen deficiency or an iron deficiency, and you put your iron on the soil and the leaves go from yellow to green. Okay, yay, we healed the plant. Okay, there is a fast effect. And that effect may be, if you're growing like an annual, the temporary benefit is enough that you don't see the consequences because that plant only lives for a season anyway. So, and when the plant gets this form, it has to take it up in a different way. It's almost like forcing, it's like forcing that vitamin or that mineral into the plant. And it kind of bypasses the normal way that it would process and uptake what it truly needs in the forms that it needs, in the right balance that it needs. Okay? Saying that plants only need NPK to grow is absolutely ridiculous. Like, that is such a tiny fraction of a percent of all the different things that a plant needs to be truly healthy from generation to generation. Okay? It's the same with people. When we ignore the role of the microbiome in converting what we take into our mouths into bioavailable nutrients, and instead we just say, here's magnesium, or here's iron, or here's zinc, or here's selenium, right? They have these amazing studies about how important selenium is against cancer. They have amazing studies about how great zinc is for the immune system. And I don't want to discount that. But to say it's the zinc in isolation that therefore is what we should have all the time for a healthy immune system, it's not in tune with natural law. Okay, I'm going to keep going, but tell me if this is connecting, if this is kind of starting to make sense in the comments. So I think it's great that labs know how to put magnesium into a form that is more bioavailable, right? Because that's the big thing. We want bioavailable nutrients, and we can do it in a lab. Okay, that's cool. But once again, you are still kind of playing Russian roulette in terms of it's just magnesium. And if you think about when you get magnesium from like red raspberry leaf tea instead, you're also getting calcium and phosphorus and iron and a million other things, some of which we don't even know about yet, have no way to measure yet. And all of these cofactors and enzymes and everything that it's packaged in informs our bodies what to do with it. And so it can do exactly what it needs with it. And if there's part of it that it doesn't need, it can flush it out easily. But if there's part of it that it does need, it takes it up easily and puts it exactly where it needs to go. That is the divine design and wisdom in our bodies. Instead, when we take, say, a calcium supplement, I know I'm not the only one here who had the journey of getting into the natural health world, and one of the first things that I think you hear about, some of the loudest voices, is the Weston A. Price organization. And I've done a YouTube and a live about that before, how it helped me and then it stopped helping me, and what I think is missing from it. But they are really good at communicating that you can't just take calcium. If you want your body to uptake that calcium properly, you need appropriate vitamin D levels. And in order for your body to process the vitamin D properly, you need appropriate vitamin K2 levels, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, magnesium comes into there as well. They're not as good at explaining all of that pathway. But you see where it becomes this, like, dominoes isn't quite the right word, a tangled web, I don't know, where your body needs the nutrients in a form and at a specific ratio with other nutrients for it to truly be a healthy way to get those into your body, to re-nourish your body, which so many of us need. Okay, so Dr. Zachary Bush is really good at explaining the biome, and he relates it to, you know, our human microbiome. And when I say microbiome, usually we're referring to the gut. Can't see, but that's what I'm pointing at, the gut. But we also have a microbiome on our skin. We have it in our eyes. Like there's a lot going on in our mouth for sure. And of course, our oral microbiome is very linked to our gut microbiome. And our gut microbiome, all of these little bacteria and viruses and yeasts, yes, viruses and yeasts, they are supposed to be there at a certain level. They, in some ways, control us. They, in some ways, are part of our second brain. They send us messages all the time. And if that population is healthy, just like if our soil is healthy and alive, okay? Healthy soil doesn't mean a certain amount of nutrients. It means it's alive and oxygenated. So if our gut is the same, it will naturally produce B vitamins. It will naturally inform our hormone levels. It will naturally inform our, what's the word? What's the word for the brain chemicals? I can't think of what the class is, but like the serotonin and the dopamine and the melatonin and all these things. And GABA and everything. So that balance is created within us according to the life that we have going on in our gut. And we create that life and we maintain that balance by what we are eating, including herbs and supplements. So supplements can be great, but when I see somebody saying, well, just take a probiotic, that's not actually going to heal your gut. That's giving you a Band-Aid. So heal your gut, and then when you take the probiotics and you're eating the right foods, they will actually stay in there. And then when I hear someone saying, well, you need to take magnesium, or you need to take more calcium, or, but don't take it from Centrum because it's garbage. Okay, that's true. But what they're selling, it's a step in the right direction, but it's not all the way there. And so what Dr. Christopher called this was part-some. He would call this part-some foods or part-some herbs. Because even some of these, it's like, oh, well, you're getting your beta-glucans from the mushroom, and you're getting your beta-carotene from a carrot. And they extract it in a lab and they put it all together and they're like, it's food-based. Oh, okay, but it's been so adulterated, it's no longer food. But it is better than like it was being just derived from petroleum. So the analogy I like to draw is we're moving from this whole idea of let's take these very fancy bioavailable non-toxic supplements like magnesium glycinate and that's the one that just keeps sticking in my head because it was the first one they mentioned and I was like, I'm gonna walk out now. And iron chelate and all these things, and oh, you should take this because it crosses the blood-brain barrier. I don't want to bypass my body's natural defense mechanisms with something unnatural. If there is a wholesome herb that can do that, and I really understand how it works, maybe I will feel comfortable with that idea. Take this because it crosses the blood-brain barrier and fixes this problem. Maybe I would be okay with that. But this whole, we've transformed the molecule so that it can get through the blood-brain barrier, that does not sound like a good idea. Because that barrier is there for a reason. Okay, so I liken this to, we have our conventional farming or our conventional gardening with all the chemicals, and it's all synthetic, it's all isolated. And then a step in the right direction would be the organic farming. But again, it's only a step in the right direction. And it's that we've replaced the synthetic factory chemicals with slightly more natural, less toxic factory chemicals. When you go all the way, it's restoring the life in the soil with wholesome means, okay? So that's companion planting. That's putting things around your plants that draw the right life to the things in the soil. It's, you can inoculate with some kind of probiotic something in the soil to get things going. I'm okay with that. You can make, especially if it's a compost tea, right? Because in that way you're just gathering, it's like making a sourdough starter where you're just gathering the spores and everything that's in the environment and putting into something that you can use to raise bread. So with compost tea, you're basically fermenting certain herbs, and you can use manure and fish emulsion, but you can also do it with just comfrey leaves and water and leave it in a bucket for a couple days, and it will generate this probiotic liquid for you that's also rich in nutrients. It's an extraction of the nutrients, but it's a natural extraction of the nutrients. And then you can spray that on your plants to get that life going. And you can mulch over things. You're providing, that's like the prebiotics, right? That's why we need fiber. That's the food for our microbiome. And when you mulch over the surface, that's breaking down at the surface and it's feeding those things. So that's more what we would call regenerative farming or gardening or permaculture gardening. And that's what I'm going for in terms of health. That's how I check back in on when I'm seeing lots of different advice. And again, only God has the absolute truth, but I'm trying to figure out, what do I think is true? And what do I feel comfortable recommending to other people? And how does my education inform that? That's what I go back to. It's, what is the natural law? What is the natural pattern here? And so if we think of it as like a good, better, best, although I wouldn't say conventional is good, but let's just say those three levels, okay? Conventional farming, organic farming, regenerative farming. Health, conventional health, big pharma. Lab supplements that are slightly more natural, or truly natural, wholesome herbs in the form of teas, dried and powdered and put into capsules, or even extracted into a tincture. That's where I want to operate. And again, there's a lot of reasons. I was going to say, why did pharmaceuticals become so popular? Why did they become the only legal way to work on some things, despite all of the side effects and after effects and the cascade of, well, now you need to take this additional drug to manage the problems that this one created for you, and so on and so forth. Again, there's a lot of reasons, and it's kind of yucky when you really get into it of how that came to be like the top dog in the medical industry. But the good reasons, so to speak, that they began to become popular is that they created dramatic results. It's actually called, let's see, I want to say heroistic. I don't think that's quite the right word, but it's hero something. Back when the doctors were using mercury and arsenic, fabulous, right? They created very rapid, very dramatic reactions. And that was seen as, well, this is powerful and we should use it, even though it frequently killed people, if not right away, over time. And the same with bloodletting, like it created very dramatic results. And so, you think about like Tylenol, like you can take a Tylenol and, have that headache at least take the edge off, like within half an hour. Like that's great, like great relief, and the pain is gone, and, it's rapid and it's temporary. The problem is that you have the side effects, and we have the side effects because even if that substance that drug is based on is actually a natural herb, like there are some drugs that are based on natural herbs, but they've been isolated, adulterated, or resynthesized, so they don't have to use the actual herb anymore. They figure out how to recreate that compound out of something else, like petroleum, often. It's really kind of funny. And it's no longer something our body recognizes as safe. It's forcing a dramatic reaction, and it may provide a bridge to help you become functional, to keep you alive. And maybe sometimes that's needed based on the person's capabilities and what's available to them. But ultimately, the body recognizes that it is, at some level, poison, and it has to do something about that. And a lot of us now, our bodies and our detox pathways are not functioning properly, and they're not capable of processing that out, and so it has to stick it somewhere. That's why we get things like liver toxicity and bone spurs and all sorts of mental emotional difficulties, behavioral disruptions, right? Because there's literally poison in our brain that our body can't get out. Whereas if we get what we need from the wholesome herbs, our body knows exactly what to do with it. Okay, so I think I've harped on that point enough times now. That if you need to watch this a couple times and let that sink in, please ask any questions that you have. I'm going to stop talking now. I'll hang on for a couple minutes if Ashley and Rebecca, you want to ask any questions or make any comments. And then I'm going to move on and leave this up for you guys to watch. But that is something that I see a lot in the health industry, is that they say, well, this pharma drug is toxic, take this vitamin instead. And my vitamin is pure and it's bioavailable and it helps everyone feel this way. Da, 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 da. You know, it helps us feel better. Da, 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 da. Again, it's great. I've done that. It's temporary. And it does eventually have side effects and after effects. So if this is totally new to you, I'm saving you a lot of years of trying the methods that, again, they might get you quick results, but ultimately they're not going to build your health long term. Okay, Rebecca says, very well stated why whole plant-based nutrients are so much better for us. Yeah, they're divinely designed. We don't need to play God with them. We don't need to isolate them. We don't need to. And the other thing that I love about, you know, like going to Dr. Christopher's school, it's like, we don't need the fancy rainforest herbs either. Like, we need the herbs that are growing right around us. Now, if anyone in my group is living in a rainforest, do those. Great. But it's better for our bodies to get messages and nutrients from the plants that grow in our environment. That's what allows us to adapt and thrive in our environment. We don't need these fancy, exotic, shiny objects from far away, even though that's where all the money is. That's where all the, you know, some people will fund cool studies on all the fancy Chinese herbs and all the fancy Peruvian herbs, and that's great, but it's not really what you need. There are wholesome, simple herbs all around us that are non-addictive, and they don't have side effects and after effects. There are only a few that have side effects or that interact with certain medications. It can be simple, so I want to help you make it simple. All right, I am going to put up some, oh wow, sorry, there are like 5 seagulls above me. I haven't seen those in a while. Squirrel. I am going to put up some events for, thank you for the hearts, for the next master classes I'm going to do. Again, I'm going to keep them pretty short because it is kind of ramping up. Like we're all starting to get a little busier, I think, heading into the holidays. So I'm going to keep them pretty short, but keep an eye out for those. If there's anyone that isn't in the group yet that you think would like to be part of them, please invite them. Let's get this knowledge out and help people. And so I think what I want to do, because there was a lot of interest on like really all the topics, I think I want to take it just one step at a time. So let's talk herbs for conception. Let's talk herbs during early pregnancy and to prevent miscarriage. Let's talk about herbs by the trimester. Let's talk about herbs for birth. Let's talk about herbs for postpartum and for breastfeeding. And we'll just kind of do some master classes kind of all in a line. And yeah, those will be events in the group, and I'll just go live just like this. So I hope you all have a fantastic week. And again, you can keep commenting on the replay, ask me questions. I'm here for you. And yeah. Take care, everybody. Bye.